Okay,
All right.
so this is the Citizens Budget Committee meeting to discuss community grants here at 6 p.m. on June 29th, 2021. Committee Chair Ed, I'll let you take it from here, or if you want me to call the roll, I can too.
That was the first item of business, so yeah, please go ahead and call the roll.
Okay. Committee Chair Schwartz.
Present?
Okay. Committee Member Farber.
Present.
Okay. Committee Member Lim. Oh, he's not.
Present.
Oh, okay, perfect. And Committee Member Waldron.
Present.
Okay, great. Per Anne's email, she is absent for tonight, but she has left us some notes. So I can go over those when we need to. And then I'll turn it over to Committee Chair Schwartz.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. So the next item on the agenda are the public comments. So it looks like we have 4 people who would like to speak. So we'll let Joshua or Kathy unmute them and let them speak one at a time, please. And we'd like to keep comments to 5 minutes or less if possible. Thanks.
Okay, great. I'll start with Caitlin Bessette from Bridges to Change. I'll try and mute her now.
Hi.
Caitlin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can't get my video. So sorry about that.
Oh, it's okay. I think I don't have an option for video, but we can hear you just fine.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I just wanted to come and share a little bit about our organization and what we are hoping for. You all have funded us multiple times, which has been amazing. We provide peer mentor services, treatment services to folks who are coming out of incarceration or homelessness. And so we have our Westland Apartments, which is one of our largest properties that we house people in. And so the Westland Apartments, the folks that are there are coming directly from incarceration, and they're in our reentry services. And every year that we've gotten funded by you all, they have sent a card my way with every person who lives in the apartment complex. They do a little thank you on the card, which unfortunately we can't send to you because of confidentiality reasons, but it's honestly probably the only time I ever get thank you cards is when you all fund them. So I just wanted to share that because I think it's really amazing to have that kind of an impact. Our request is normally for bedding for them because they tend to go through bedding pretty quickly there. It'll be hard for our organization because we have over 500 beds to continuously buy sheets and comforters and pillows when they get worn out. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to share. I just wanted to say thank you for the times that you have funded us in the past and share a little bit about how much they appreciate what you all have done.
Thank you, Caitlin. Does any committee member have a question for Caitlin? Seeing none, let's move on to our next commenter. Thanks again, Caitlin.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, the next comment is going to go to Rebecca Hollenbeck with the Historic Willamette Main Street organization. So I'm going to try and unmute her now.
Hi.
Rebecca, can you hear us?
I can.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So as he said, my name's Rebecca Hollenbeck, and I'm the Executive Director of Historic Willamette Main Street. And I really just want to thank you guys for allowing me to come tonight and explain to you about our application that we've submitted. The application is for a $3,000 grant, which will provide the money to produce and install an informational sign that will be put in front of the Willamette meteorite replica that is currently housed in front of the Willamette Fire Station. And we are working on this project along with the Westland Historical Society. This replica was made in 1962 and has been a very long-standing part of West Linn history in and of itself, in addition to it representing the Willamette meteorite. Our goal is to install a sign that will give people reference to the actual meteorite itself, with links to a QR code that we can change the content of that page, but it will also link people to the museum in New York. It will explain the history behind the actual replica that was made right here in Willamette. So I just wanted to thank you guys for considering our application for this. There's a lot of public support behind this and a lot of people that are really driving this effort in the community. And one of our residents has already written up the wording and the verbiage that will go on the signage. And we have run it by the Grand Ronde tribe to make sure that they are comfortable with the wording that's on there. We've actually made some changes on their behalf in regards to that. So again, just thank you for considering our application this year.
Thank you, Rebecca. We appreciate your comments tonight. Do any members of the committee have any questions for Rebecca? Nope. Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Perrin, could I ask you to mute your microphone? I think we're getting a little feedback, maybe. Thank you. Okay, Joshua, who's up next?
Okay, great. Next we have Jody Carson, also from the Historic Willamette Main Street group. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute her now. Jody, can you hear us?
I can. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you very much to all of you who are serving on this committee. Really appreciate all the time that you're taking to review these community grants. I know that it takes a fair amount of time to go through this whole process. So thank you very much for your service. I'm the chair of the design committee of Historic Willamette Main Street, and I'm just going to add a few more things to what Rebecca has already stated. This is a good size interpretive sign. I don't know if you've been down to Willamette Park. There's a couple of interpretive signs there by the Grindstone projects, and they're the same, done by the same company, and the same person designed them, Roger Shepard. They'll be the same size and quality of sign. So just to, if you want to sort of get a visual of what that sign looks like, they are down there by the Grindstone project. And when we found that we are doing the Main Street changes and this changes to the streetscape, and there was a discussion about what to do with the meteorite, we got feedback from a number of citizens who were involved in creating that meteorite back in 1962, who really wanted to make sure that meteorite was saved and preserved as part of the interpretation of the actual Willamette meteorite. And so people knew the history. And so basically this model of the meteorite, which is not accurate by any means, initially was in front of the old Willamette Falls volunteer fire station in Willamette. And then when the new fire station was built, it was moved in front of the Methodist Church with a small interpretive plaque. And now with the changes in the streetscape, we have moved it back in front of the fire station, once again, back to its original home. This sign includes information about how the meteorite replica was created by a group of volunteers in West Linn. And then it also talks about the history of the meteorite, the fact that it landed near West Linn, how it was moved, how it ended up being exhibited at the World's Fair, and how it moved to the Museum of Science and Industry in New York. It also talks about, I think we mentioned that the exact replica of it is in Fields Bridge Park with interpretive signage. It also has the Native American history around it because it is considered to be a sacred object by the Native American tribes of the region, which is why we had the Grand Ronde review the text. And there's some pictures of it, and both, when it was being moved and some of the original pictures. So it's a very comprehensive interpretive sign. It tries to share sort of all the different aspects of this replica as well as the actual meteorite. This effort is being supported, I think, as Rebecca mentioned, by Willamette Main Street and by the West Lynn Historical Society. They've actually been having a table in front of the replica, in front of the fire station for each of our farmers market. And there is a picture, a mock-up of what the interpretive sign will be. So if you want to stop by, you can actually see a mock-up of that sign that we will like to get printed up and mounted. So they're very involved. It's also very much supported by the Willamette Falls and Landings Heritage Area Coalition. And I know Mayor Walters was at our last meeting and was saying that she was very supportive of this effort. And we have a couple of the coalition members who will be helping to man the booth in front of the meteorite. And we're trying to raise some interest and increase awareness and raise some funds. I think so far the booth unfortunately has only raised like $12. So we do not have money at this point in time to create this sign. And so this is a collaborative effort with the Historical Society and with us to get this interpretive sign created and installed. So we really would like to have your support in our grant application, and I appreciate the time you've taken to review that. And if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Jody. Do we have any questions from any committee members? Yes, Abby?
Thank you, Ed. And thank you, Jody. I'd just like to commend them for consulting with the tribes that, yes, the meteorite is a sacred object to them. And it's just really good to see that kind of thoughtfulness going on in both community groups and government.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, Joshua, Jody, thanks again. And Joshua, let's move on to our next comment.
Your time.
Okay, the last comment is from Pam Krecklow at the West Lynn Historical Society. So I'm going to unmute her now. Pam, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Pam Krecklow, treasurer of the West Lynn Historical Society, and I am here tonight with two items to support. The first one is the West Lynn Historical Society grant. We are so grateful for all the past support the city has provided the organization, and we are requesting the grant to continue to provide our interactive community events, displays, and educational opportunities to the full community of West Lynn. I don't need to tell this group the challenges that we've been up against the last 18 months, but we are so excited to be moving forward and could need a little help in getting some of the events that we have planned for the rest of this year up and going. We're planning a vintage road show for August at the McLean House. We're also looking at doing our tea this fall since we weren't able to do it in February. We're still looking at doing a fall Ignite event and an author talk. So we would appreciate your consideration on the grant. The second reason I am here tonight is also for the Historic Willamette Main Street grant for a meteorite sign. We do fully and completely support this. Not only has the replica been moved, but it's also not in West Lynn. And it's just a replica that's there. The meteorite is in New York. It has a plaque on it, but it does not have a sign with the facts, the details, and the humor that are all included within the meteorite story. The sign can provide all that, since there isn't anyone there 24/7 to tell the very rich story behind that. And so we, as they said, we have been raising funds, asking for donations at our summer market booth. I can give an update. We've actually got $24 for the sign. So we are making progress, but we're very excited to be joining the Historic Main Street group to be doing this. And we look forward to one day being able to actually get the sign up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. Does any committee member have any questions or comments? Seeing none. Thanks again, Pam. We appreciate your time tonight. Thanks to all of our commenters. And Joshua, I think that's everybody. Do we have any other community comments?
No, that's it. That was all the public comments we had.
Great. Okay, thank you. So next we'll move into a discussion of the applications. Maybe Joshua could give us just a brief overview of the spreadsheet that he sent out to us with the various applications that we have, and just kind of summarize the responses, and then I kind of have a thought as to how we might proceed after that. So Joshua, would you give us a little review, please?
Sure. So similar to prior years, we've had $25,000 to award and allocate to recommend to council. There were 13 applicants this year. Most of them, not all, I believe, were repeat applicants from prior years. And let me see here. I believe the total amount requested for this current year, so the total amount of dollars requested by all applicants totaled $29,559. So just slightly over $25,000. Is there anything else you would like me to go over in detail regarding these applicants?
No, I think that covers it right now. Unless anybody else had a question for Joshua right at this moment. Yes, Abby?
Thank you, Ed. Is there a bottom line that we're trying to reach, Josh? I know we just did the budget, and I can't remember if there's a allocation that we're expecting to hit.
No, just the $25,000 that is set aside each year to be awarded to these recipients. I do have one thing to note from prior year. There was one agency not included in this list this year, the Westland Alliance for Inclusive Community, and they had some funds left over from fiscal year 20, I believe, which was, I think, in the tune of $250. Let me just double check that. And last year, during fiscal year 21, they reported that they did not spend those funds and they would like to hold on to it. And due to the COVID pandemic, they were unable to hold any events throughout 2021. So they'd like to continue to retain those dollars through fiscal year 2022 when they could start up their programs again. So that is one additional amount for the committee to consider in addition to the $25,000 that's to be recommended to City Council.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joshua. So maybe we should address that question first as to whether to allow the Westland Alliance for Inclusive Community to keep that $250 that is unspent from their 2020 grant. So is there any discussion? Anybody have any thoughts on that? Yes, Abby?
I'm always the first to raise my hand. I'm going to wait next time. I think given the amount that it's just pretty tiny, and would like to propose, I'm not going to make the motion yet, but would like to, but I will make a motion if it's appropriate that we let them keep it. I mean, it's $250. They're an advocacy group. They do most of their work by having meetings and getting together the community. And I think it would be appropriate, given the circumstances of 20 and 21, that we let them keep it and just spend it out. If they can't spend it out, then, maybe it's time to take a look at it next time.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Perrin or Sheila, any other comments before we have a motion? Yeah, Perrin.
I completely agree with Abby on that one. And just, this is my first year. So Josh brought up an item. Any grant amount that is unused at the end of a fiscal year is supposed to be returned to the city? Is that what it sounds like?
Yes, that's correct. And so an exception was made last year when this agency reported that they had unused funds. And during the budget committee and the subsequent city council meeting, it was visited and discussed and determined that it would be okay to allow them to retain those funds going forward. And so this agency has come up again for your consideration this year.
Thank you.
Yes, Abby.
So that's interesting, that this is the second time they've come back to it. But again, the pandemic's been since March of 20, we've shut down as a country since March of 2020. So I'm not changing my recommendation. Again, $250. If they come to us a third time, then it might be, given that things are opening back up again, and hope to goodness nothing else happens, that we allow them, to keep it for this time.
Thank you, Abby. Any other comments before we accept a motion on this item? Seeing none, would somebody like to make a motion then? Feel free, Abby, if you want to jump in.
Okay, I move that the citizens, but that we, the committee, recommend to City Council that the what's the name of them again? It's no longer the Concerned Citizens of Westland. It's the
Alliance.
I'm sorry, it's not Concerned Citizens. It's Westland Alliance. Be allowed to keep the balance of the grant money for another fiscal year.
We have a second.
I would second.
Thank you, Perrin. So it's been moved and seconded to allow the Westland Alliance for Inclusive Community to keep their additional or their unspent $250 from their 2020 grant award for one additional year. Any other comments or questions on this item? Nope. Okay. Joshua, could you call the roll, please?
Sure thing. Committee Chair Schwartz.
Yes.
Okay. Committee Member Farber.
Yes.
Committee Member Lim.
Yes.
And Committee Member Waldron.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you all. The motion passes. So now we can move on to a discussion of the grant awards for this year. As you heard from Joshua's summary, the maximum we have available to award is $25,000, and the total requests are, I think, slightly in excess of $29,000. So unfortunately, we won't be able to meet everybody's request, but I think we're pretty close. So my thinking on this, and I certainly would accept anybody else's suggestions, but I did notice we have some requests where we're all in pretty good agreement. I think we have a few where we have all five of us who have provided numbers where we all agree. So I kind of was thinking of working down from that top level and then working down through the ones where we maybe have 4 people in agreement, and then 3, and then down to the lower ones where we have just a couple of people in agreement. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Okay, thank you. So let's start with the first ones that I see. We're starting at the top. The Clackamas Women's Services. We have essentially we have all 5 in agreement. Their request was for $4,999. And we have 3 committee members who have agreed with that number exactly, and 2 who have even offered an extra dollar at $5,000 apiece. So if we're all in agreement on that, we could just set that at either $49.99, which was their request, or just round it up to 5,000. Abby? 5? Yeah. Any other concerns about that, Perrin or Sheila? So we're proposing to just lock in that $5,000 for Clackamas Women's Services. Okay, hearing nothing, we'll go ahead and lock that one in, Joshua. I'm kind of going to keep track as we go along here as well, as I'm sure you're doing.
Yes.
The next one down is the Community Living Above Oregon, which was previously the Westland Community Task Force. They requested $2,000, and all 5 committee members are in agreement with the $2,000 amount. So seeing that, are there any other comments or concerns? Seeing none, I think, Joshua, we can go ahead and lock that one in at $2,000 then, please.
Okay, got it.
And of course, just to make sure the committee's understanding here, once we get the numbers all chosen, then we will have a vote on the total package. This is just a recommendation to the city council, and then the council will ultimately have the final say over the amounts. Okay, so let's move down now to Friends of Maddox Woods. Again, they requested $500. All 5 committee members are in agreement with that amount. Any comments or questions on that one? Okay, so let's go ahead and lock that one in at $500 as well then. And then we'll skip for now the historic Willamette Main Street and move to honoring those who serve. Their request was for $400, and all 5 committee members agreed with that amount. So are there any other comments or questions on that? Seeing nothing, we'll go ahead and lock that one in then at $400, Joshua.
Okay, and I'll go over all of them at the end and recap just to make sure.
That would be great. Yes, please. And so I believe, unless correct me if I'm wrong, Joshua, but I think those were the only ones where we had all 5 in agreement. So with that, I'd like to move to the ones where we had 4 out of 5 in agreement. And I think the first one on my list is the July 4th fireworks event. Their request was for $3,000. And we had 4 committee members who agreed with that and 1 who had a lower number. So are there any discussions about that? Perrin, did you want to discuss your number or have a comment about it?
Sure. I don't want to use the excuse of this as being my first time, but when I looked at it, my thought was it's a pretty serious fire season, and I just thought maybe that's not the best idea. So that's why I had a reduced amount. I could be wrong with the use of the proceeds. Maybe it's not necessarily for the actual fireworks. Maybe it's for entertainment or whatever, but that was my thought process. And I'm also, after last year, this might be the exact thing that is needed. I'm certainly open to some revisions or changing. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments on that one? Yes, Abby?
While I've never attended the 4th of July fireworks event, I've heard people talk about it for the 6 years we've been here, and the community really likes it. From what I understand, the people that organize it bring in a professional fireworks display company. So this isn't just the annoying people across your street who are setting off fireworks during a fire season, but real honest to goodness firefighters who, and well, first of all, TVF&R is very involved. They're on the scene, but professional people displaying them. And I'd much rather see people go to that than the private use of fireworks to celebrate.
Thank you, Abby. Sheila, did you have any comment?
I would just chime in. I agree with Abby. So I recommended the full amount because it is such a community building event. And again, it prevents, people aren't lighting off fireworks at their house. You can't even bring fireworks to the event. It's only the official licensed ones that are allowed at the park. So just in the spirit of the community grant and what they should be used for, that's why I recommended the full amount.
Great, thank you. And yes, I concur with those comments. I think having the professionals do it is much preferred to having your next door neighbor or somebody setting fireworks in the street. So with that, Perrin, would you have any objection if we went ahead with the funding of it as agreed by the other four people?
I am in agreement, 3,000 full funding.
Okay.
Just to step in here as well, the $3,000 in talking to Alice Richmond, who applied under this organization, was intended to be used for mostly for insurance on the application. So there was the insurance cost estimated at $2,700, $2,700, and she was planning to use those $3,000 to pay mostly for that. And then she bumped up her ask for $3,000 just to cover other expenses expected to be incurred in the show. So,
Okay. Okay, thanks for that clarification, Joshua. Appreciate it. And feel free on any of these to jump in if you have any other comments. I don't mean to exclude you from being able to provide comments as well.
okay, great.
So our next one where we had a consensus of 4 out of 5, by my reckoning, is the Westland Lake Oswego Village, or Willow. They requested $940. We have 4 members in agreement with that, and then Anne had put her number at $1,000. Her comment, let's see, you probably all saw that, but she did say she rounded up to $1,000. They do a lot of really good, mainly volunteer work supporting seniors in their homes. I know several people who benefit from their services. So we could just proceed with the 940 that the rest of us are in agreement with, if we wish, or if anybody else feels that we should change that amount, please let me know right now. Yes, Abby.
Thanks, Ed. It's not that we should change it. I think I'd like to propose that we leave it for now at 940. If we've got an extra $60, put it in there. It's a real, as we say in accounting, de minimis amount, but at the same time, let's see what we need.
It sounds like a reasonable suggestion. Anybody else with any comments or thoughts on that?
I would agree. I would want to award them more than their ask unless we know we have funds left over.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Sheila.
Agree with Sheila and Abby there.
Thank you, Perrin. All right, so Joshua, will leave that one then at 940 for the Westland Lake Oswego Village.
Okay.
Pending the final numbers that we come up with. Then the last one where I see we had 4 in consensus was the Youth Music Project. They had requested $1,000. And I believe it was Anne who had a $500 number instead. Let's see if she commented on that. She said, I reduced the youth project request from 1,000 to 500. Looking at their financials, they seem to have a lot of assets, not just their building. The project is fairly worthy, but not as high a priority for me at this time as organizations such as Clackamas Women's Services, Westland Food Bank. So again, any thoughts on whether we want to just leave it at the consensus 4 out of 5, which was the full amount of their request, $1,000?
I'm just going to take a quick look at their financial statement because, assets could be the musical instruments or things like that. And if they're sitting on a ton of cash, then that's another thing through, tuition and other things. So if I could have 2 seconds to read the financial statement.
Sure, Abby. So in the meantime, anybody else have any other comments on Youth Music Project's request?
I think it was Josh that sent at some point a 5-year history, and I noted that it looks like the average, if that's a usable number or not, is around $1,000. So it didn't seem to be too out of line.
Okay. Thank you, Perrin. Any other comments?
No, and Abby, you might see this when you look at the financials, but I do recall they do offer a lot of scholarships for their programming too. So they may have what looks like a lot of funds, but they could be planned to offer scholarships for kids.
So if I,
Yes,
can I, Ed?
Sure.
Took another look at their statement of activities and how much cash there are. Now, I have to admit, I didn't do this for, we haven't put other organizations through the same lens of, well, how much cash are they sitting on kind of thing. They do, just looking at their fiscal 20, they had net they had net income of about $345,000. And as of that time, they were sitting about $600,000 in cash. That's, it could be a lot, but at the same time, they've got expenses every year of over $1 million. And they do give out, they do get some donated rent and services and things like that. The amount we're talking about is not a huge amount, and I think again $1,000 is reasonable. We may look more closely at that, and if we're going to again put them through that kind of lens of, well, you can't be sitting on more than X number of assets, I think we would have to do the same for all the other organizations. So in conclusion, I'd say I'm comfortable with my suggestion of giving them the whole amount.
Thank you, Abby. Any other comments? I'll just add that I agree with you, Abby. The size of a business obviously can impact the amount of money they're dealing with, and it does sound like a lot of money, but yet I know they do a lot of good work as well. So, and I think Sheila's comment about them providing scholarships is also well taken. So with that, I'd like to propose that we leave that at the full amount of $1,000. Does anybody else have any last comments on that? Seeing none, I think we'll leave it at $1,000 then, Josh.
Okay.
Okay, so now I'd like to move back to the top of the list, at least that's the last one I have where we had 4 in agreement. So now I think we're down to the ones where we had 3 in agreement, 3 members in agreement. So the first item that comes to me is the bridges to changes. And I know on that one we had, they requested $1,650. We had 3 members who went with that amount, $1,650. We had Ann at $1,600, and then Abby has recused herself from this one. So let me look at Ann's comments. She just said, I took off $50 to balance the budget, though I think this is a very worthwhile project. So with that, any comments on this? My proposal would be to leave it at the $1,650, the full request, but happy to entertain anybody else's comments.
I agree with the 1650.
Thank you.
Agreed as well.
Thank you. All right, so I think we'll leave that one at $1,650 for now. And of course, we can always revisit a few if we need to at the end, but I'd like to get as close to a consensus as we can on these other ones. All right, moving down, I think the next one then with 3 is the West Lynn Community Chorus. They requested $2,070. We had 3 members who agreed with that amount. We had 1 member, Perrin, at $1,035, and then we had Abby at $1,000. So could we have any comments on that item? Abby?
I'll jump in because I also put in the lowest. I was looking very much at extreme need, especially this year with the pandemic, and trying to make sure that we were fully funding those places that were doing direct service in effect, like the Village, I know the Youth Music Project does give scholarships, not necessarily a social service, but certainly Clackamas Women's Services, Community Living Above, that area. And it just didn't feel the same for the chorus. And when it says for live streaming equipment, I know they've been around for a while, so I just wasn't, and I know they're very well thought of, but I just wasn't sure of, they've already picked up equipment and have things for live streaming. I kind of looked and said, okay, so what more, how much more do we want to go on this, given that we've got places like the pantry and other places to speak about. So that was my taking it down a little bit.
Okay, thanks, Abby. Perrin or Sheila, any comment?
Yeah, I wasn't, to be honest, real familiar with the Westland Community Chorus. And so I just came in lower than their ask amount. But I am open to revision, as you have indicated earlier, just like I revisited the 4th of July celebration. I just wasn't as familiar as I should be with the mandate of the Westland Community Chorus.
Okay, thanks, Perrin. So we have, again, just to summarize, Perrin, did you have another comment?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Just to summarize again for the community chorus, they requested 2,070. We had 3 committee members who went with that amount. We had one at $1,035 and one at $1,000. Would anybody like to propose a final amount? Yes, Abby?
I'd like to tentatively propose, I'm sitting here keeping track of where we're at in terms of up, down, that kind of thing. And we are going to have to make some choices because we're still at 29,560 if we, fund all these requests fully. So I would feel more comfortable bringing them down to, it could be 1,070. That to me, giving tiny little amounts, just give nice clean amounts as funders. And, if people had an argument saying, well, let's try 1,500 or something, at the end of the day, we still have to get to $25,000. And that one seemed to be, they're all good programs. That seemed to me to be a little less painful to cut from a, direct good to as a service kind of thing. Although we all need the arts and music, just a little less painful.
Okay, so your proposal would be for what amount?
The original 1,000, what I put in, 1,000, I could take 1,500 at the max. Again, we're still going to have to look at what the bottom line is. And right now we're at 29,560. So there's some painful choices we're going to have to make.
Sure. Anybody else with any comments on Abby's proposal of 1,500 or 1,000 to 1,500, I guess it was?
Yeah.
Yes, Sheila?
I was just going to recommend, since we did have 3 committee members recommend the full amount, maybe for now we use that average of 1,635, and we could always revisit when we get to our reconciliation at the end and we can move things around, but that could be a good starting point.
Okay. Thank you. I see nodding heads. Anybody else with any comments on that?
I like that way of thinking, Sheila. That's smart.
Agreed.
All right, that sounds like a plan then. So
I'll chime in here.
Yes.
Anne did note in her email that she wanted to recommend the full amount of 2,070. So if I take the average, if I take the spreadsheet and I take the average of that, it comes out to 1,650. Did you want me to just round up to that amount? Is that?
I think that would be okay. Anybody have any objections to that? Okay, keeps it cleaner. So yes, let's go ahead with 1,650 on that one, Joshua. Okay, moving on. The next one we had, where we had 3 people in agreement was the Westland Food Pantry. They requested $2,500, and we had 3 in agreement at that amount. And then we had an agreement at $5,000, so doubling their request. And that was Abby and Ann. Let me see what Ann has to say here. West Lynn Food Pantry has experienced a big increase in demand since COVID, and they can use all the money we could give them to buy fresh fruit, vegetables, and bread, plus dairy products. I recommend giving them $5,000. Anybody else have any comments on this one? Yes, Abby?
I do know, and I think one of the other neighborhood presidents mentioned to this, I'm also a neighborhood president, as you may know, that one of their sponsors pulled out from providing them with food quite recently. So the need is even more dire. And although, you know, there's certainly a resurgence with COVID, I think certainly the people who are frequenting the food pantry are still feeling it. And, you know, an additional 2,000, you know, giving them more than what they asked for, I think is appropriate. I truly do.
Thank you, Abby. Any other comments right at the moment? I had a question, Joshua. Does the city council also provide a separate grant, do you know, to the food pantry?
To my knowledge, in the current year, no, they do not. I do know that in the prior year, the West Lynn Food Pantry applied and asked for $2,000, and the council initially awarded them an award of $2,500 outside the grants process. And then the budget committee voted to award them an additional $1,500 for a total of $4,000. So last year there was a grant. There was an award amount outside of the grants process that was given to them during the pandemic. But to my knowledge this year, I'm not aware of any outside granting or funding plan to be awarded to them.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm certainly very supportive myself of the food pantry. My wife and I do donate to them quite frequently. It's a great organization. I think the money is well used. My concern is, again, as we've said, we have more requests than we have available funding. Perhaps we could start by going with the average amount, as we have done with the other requests, where we had a little bit of difference of opinion on the amounts. So in that case, I think the average of the amounts would be the $3,500. So kind of a middle ground. Any thoughts on that as a starting point for now? See, Abby in agreement or reluctantly in agreement?
Yeah, I mean, I also, not reluctant, but, you know, just the fact that we're going to have to, you know, when we get to the bottom of this, we're still over. So we're just going to have to make some tough decisions.
Any other comments before we put down 3,500 for now? Okay.
No, well, the only comment I would say is, as Abby reiterated, you know, the last two, we'll just have to sharpen the pencil, and at the end of this on those two, as well as a couple others, I believe. So we'll just have to take it from there.
Okay, thank you, Perrin. Anything else? Okay, so let's go ahead then, Joshua, and put 3,500 for the food pantry.
Okay, I've got it.
And then the next one that I see where we had 3 in agreement is the West Lynn Historical Society. Did I hear a comment? No. Okay. They requested $2,500, and we did have 2 committee members who agreed on $2,500, which was their request, and then we had 3 at $2,000. So did we have any comments or suggestions on that one?
I would be okay lowering mine from 2,500 to 2,000.
Okay, thank you, Sheila. So then we would have 4 in agreement at $2,000. And Perrin, any thoughts on?
I'm good with using $2,000, and you know, formally I'd change mine to $2,000.
Okay.
Going to have to do it sooner or later, so.
Right, understood. So that puts us at 2,000 across the board on the Historical Society. So let's go ahead and put that in, Joshua. And so just as a little update, by my count, we're at 21,640 out of the 25,000 available. And we still have a few to go here. So let's see the next one. So I think that's all of the ones where we had 3 in agreement. Now we're down to the ones where we have just a couple of members in agreement, although we still had some pretty close numbers. So the first one I see is the Historic Willamette Main Street. They requested $3,000, and we had 2 members at $1,500, 1 member at $2,000, 1 member at $2,100, and 1 member at $3,000. So any comments from the committee? Yes, Abby?
I've been running a total based on what we've approved plus what's left to do. And I think we might be able to end up giving everybody, the ones remaining, a little something without saying no entirely, and getting to the place we need to be. And I think this is one of those. I mean, I love the idea of signs. Was this where Jody and the other individuals spoke to us about the sign at the Willamette
Yes.
Media, right? I love that. I love the marker. I love the fact that it's there and that it provides more information for people who don't do it. I think in my mind, it's just not as urgent as some other needs. And, if we can fund part of it, maybe something like the Clackamas Tourist Agency or something like that could kick in a little extra money for it.
Thank you, Abby. Any other comments from the committee? Or Joshua, of course. All right, I'll just add my 2 cents, and I think I agree with you, Abby. I think that given that we do need to make some cuts in some places, while I support the Historic Willamette Main Street folks, I think they do great work. I do think that at this point, this probably isn't at the top of my list for priority, given the current state of this country and certainly the people around West Lynn. So I would like to, propose perhaps we do give them something. We could either take the minimal amount that Abby and I had recommended of $1,500. We could start with that and see how that plays out, or if somebody else has a number they would prefer, feel free to bring it up. So are we okay at starting with 1,500 for them for now, and then we'll see if we can bring that up later? Yes, Abby?
I just feel like 1,500's sensible. Defensible, perhaps, is another word. That we can't give it all to you. We're going to give you half. Try to raise the rest. Come back to us again in a year, sort of thing, and we can see how things are.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Nope. All right, so let's go ahead and put that one down at 1,500 then, Joshua, for Historic Willamette Main Street.
I've got it noted.
Thank you. So then the next one that I see where we had 2 in agreement is the Sun Garden Montessori. They had requested $5,000, and we had quite a variety here. We had Ann and Abby with no allocation. We had Sheila with 441. I had put in 2,000, and then Perrin had put in 3,750. So we have quite a spread there. Just for FYI, the average of that was $1,238. Well, any comments on that one?
Yes.
Yes, Perrin?
I'll start. And again, the main driver for me was just the fact that it's education of youth, pre-K, and that age group, and they're I think overlooked many times in the West Lynn area. So that was the driver for me, notwithstanding comments, or is it Ann's comments that it is kind of driven, I think you too, Ed, for fundraising. So yeah, that takes the bloom off of it a little bit, but nevertheless, I thought it was a worthy cause in terms of educational benefits for the extreme young. That said, I revised upward earlier, and I would definitely be open to revising downward the Sun Garden figure. And if I were to match Ed at 2,000, that would leave some room for maybe adding a little bit more to the Westland Food Pantry or other couple other worthy items that we're going to circle back on. So if I went to 2,000, I will go to 2,000 and see how that looks in the tally. I don't know what number we would agree on as a group, though.
Okay, well, let's see if Sheila or Abby have a comment. Abby?
Thank you, and thank you, Perrin, for that observation. I've worked with not-for-profits a long time, and I've, it's rare that you ask for money just to hold an event. You usually ask money to be donated directly, and I think they would be more likely to say, go out and get sponsors for this event, which is what usually a not-for-profit will do. So not the city necessarily, but, all the different places that support schools and vendors and things like that, either ask them to supply the food for the event, or if they're going to do it outside, to donate a tent so you can do it. So to me, it's I'd rather see us just give them money to run or something like that. But this is what they've applied for. At the same time, I just ran the numbers again because I've been keeping track as to how much we've awarded. If we were to give them $1,860, I believe that adds up, then we would hit 25,000 and we're done. And that might be a nice, easy answer. And then, in a way, yeah, it's helping them with their fundraising event, but, every dollar that comes in for a fundraising event either goes to doing the event, which again, you usually get sponsors for, or to getting the money for your general operating support.
Okay. Thank you, Abby. That's a good suggestion. I concur with the number that you came up with. 1860, I think, is what we have remaining. So any other comments from committee members?
I would just say, so my 4041 was just a plug to meet the 25,000 overall. And I think that Anne made a comment. So typically fundraising events are like the lowest priority in terms of our community grants. And this one seems like it's a little more limited in scope than compared to some of the other items. Even like the Main Street request technically would still benefit anyone who's in the area versus the Montessori request just only benefiting that limited scope of the community. So that would be another argument to award them a lower amount.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila. Any other comments? Yes, Perrin?
I didn't hear, Sheila, the amount that you indicated. I got a little lag or static, but I like the way Anne's 1860 figure works out pretty nicely, and that's assuming that there is no further discussion on the agreed upon start figures for the historic Willamette Main Street and the food pantry and the community chorus. And again, I'm not sure, Sheila, what you mentioned as the figure for the Sun Garden Montessori.
Yeah, on my spreadsheet, I submitted 441 just to balance my recommendations. I think my concern is setting a precedent of awarding that much money for a fundraising event. I would throw that out there also.
Did you have an amount that you would, are you pretty much staying with your 441 then?
I mean, we could round to like 500 or something and then allocate the balance to the food pantry or another request.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that one? Yes, Abby?
Again, in thinking about it, I have never seen an organization apply for a grant for a fundraiser. Again, it's almost always done ask for sponsors. You know, if they had put in a proposal saying we want to build out the library in one of the rooms or manipulatives or something like that, I mean, I would say, sure, go for it. And, you know, I do feel a little, I don't know enough about them if they're providing scholarships. Well, they are providing scholarships and this would help them do that, but just that it doesn't ring quite right. And if people do have proposals about taking that 1860 and divvying it up among other groups, I wouldn't have an objection, especially if it goes to the food pantry, which I think is just so important.
Thank you, Abby. I'll just add my comments. I really agree with Sheila. I do have, and Abby, I do really have concerns about setting a precedent of awarding money for a fundraising event. If we were to go with, say, $500, we could, I would, even though it wouldn't be, I suppose, I would kind of like to look at it as a sponsorship, like Abby mentioned, you know, that the city could be sponsoring this event is for $500 rather than actually covering the cost of the fundraiser at the full amount. So that would be my comments. Anybody have a proposal? Yes, Perrin?
Yes, given the fact that it is for fundraising, I completely agree now. And I want to ask Josh or those that have gone through this before, in the past, when it comes down to fundraising, I mean, isn't there a different way to submit that application, whether it's SunGard Montessori or someone else? I mean, as Ann pointed out, or as Abby pointed out, if it was for library supplies or, you know, things that aren't necessarily fundraising, is that legitimate for the purpose of a grant? I mean, they submitted it and explicitly said to help out with fundraising, their annual fundraiser, whatever it was. So next time, I don't know if you provide feedback, Josh, to all of the applicants. If there was feedback, you know, we can't do fundraising. That's considered lowest priority. You know, if there's a better worthy, or not worthy, but a better use of the funds, we would consider it more strongly.
So I don't necessarily provide feedback to the applicants per se, but I do have a guide that has been used previously in prior years' awards. And I can go over those points with you if you'd like. These were kind of overarching themes or principles that prior budget committees used in, you know, awarding, I guess, the criteria used to award funds to applicants. Did you want me to go over those bullet points with you?
Yes, I think that would be helpful, Josh. Go ahead.
Okay. So this was from a memo back in 2017. This is June 13th, 2017. And the budget committee at that time indicated when they made their award recommendation, they used the following points. The overall guiding principles in evaluating the request were as follows. Priority is given to organizations and causes that directly benefit West Lynn residents. 2, a complete, descriptive, and thorough application submitted. 3, transparency as to exactly what funds would be used, and 4, they would be used for and who benefits. 4, no funding allocated for advertising and promotion. 5, no funding allocated to neighborhood associations. 6, no funding for purely fundraising type of events or requests related to political advocacy. So there was fundraising, but it also restricts it to political advocacy. And that's it there, I believe. Let me see if I have anything else, if you want to continue discussing, if there's any other guiding principles or sort of criteria used in making prior awards.
Okay, thanks, Josh. Yes, Abby?
I do notice that Sun is a 501c3, so they are a nonprofit, which is good, or they say they are. I do notice, I looked at their budget again for the fundraiser, and it's like $1,000 for a band, $2,000 to rent space, a certain, another 1,000 for food. And I just don't see anywhere where they said we're attempting to get sponsors for the event, because that's usually cover your costs. And I worry about the precedents as well, you know, that publicly we are giving money so another organization can raise more money. And that perhaps just telling them, you know, go back again and, you know, next time, you know, just look at the criteria, look at some of the other organizations that got funding. You know, that's good advice for any grant maker to make. And I feel even less inclined after looking again at the budget and saying, I just don't see that they've done their own diligence in thinking about this event.
Thank you, Abby. Joshua, could you read that last one again that did mention fundraising?
Sure, and I actually found some additional criteria that was applied in 2020, which might be a little bit more clearer than what I just said earlier. Did you want me to go over that instead? Okay. So there was a guide issued, criteria for Westlands Community Grant Program, that we had back in fiscal year 2020. And so there's two parts to it. I'll go over the first part here. The first part is event/program criteria. And this says these are not exclusive categories, but are to be used by applicants and by the review committee as guidelines for the types of activities funded by the community grant program. The review committee will consider the uniqueness and overall quality of each request. Number one, events or programs that enhance and or support Westland history, culture, education, diversity, arts, needed services, or community involvement with and or for the benefit of the citizens of Westland. Number two, events or programs to encourage and foster advances in civic engagement or community leadership. And number three, events or programs to promote involvement with Westland's youth or elderly population in community activities. So that was event/program criteria. Now the second part of this was evaluation criteria. And so it says here, the review committee will review all applications and determine their recommendations to council according to the program criteria and the intent of the community grant program. One, priority will be given to organizations or causes that can demonstrate this specific grant request will directly benefit Westland residents. Two, priority given to grant requests demonstrating the need for seed money where other funding sources are also utilized or will later be utilized for future support. Three, priority is given to first-time and non-repeat applicants. Four, lowest priority is given for advertising or promotion. And five, lowest priority will also be given for fundraising type of events. The committee wishes to see that grant funds have a direct impact on Westland residents. When community grant funds are used for fundraising events, the grant may not affect Westland residents directly unless the donors are primarily from Westland and the beneficiaries are all Westland residents.
Thank you, Joshua.
Sure.
So based on that, does any committee member have any other comments? I will just put in that I'm less inclined now to provide any funding for this fundraiser based on the previous committee's work and those separate, or at least two different lists there that directly addressed fundraising events, and both were inclined against providing funding for that. So,
Yeah.
Any comments on that, Abby?
I agree with you, Ed. I think it's, you know, as good as a program it is, you know, fundraising just shouldn't be our first priority. Providing money to help fundraising should not be our first priority.
Perrin, saw your hand.
Sure. As others have mentioned, I would agree. We do not want to set a precedence because that would open up the door, and who knows how many would come in after seeing this. So, if they ask why, Josh, fundraising's at the lowest priority. So, there are other needs that are more urgent. If you feel otherwise next year, come on back. But I'd be inclined to go to zero based on that fact that it's primarily used for fundraising.
Okay. Thank you, Perrin. Any other comments then?
I agree with the rest of the group.
Great, thank you, Sheila. So Joshua will set the SunGard Montessori then to not receive a grant this year.
Okay.
So based on that, then I think we still do have, I think that was the last request. I think we've talked about every one of them. So that does leave, by my count, $1,860 available. We don't have to give out the entire amount, but I know there were some others that we had talked about earlier that perhaps we wanted to maybe revisit quickly and see if we wanted to make any changes to those. The first one on my list was the Westland Lake Oswego Village, the Willow. I believe we had talked about potentially, let me see here as soon as I can find it. So they had requested $940 and we had funded them at $940, but I think there was some talk about possibly increasing that by $60 to $1,000. But any comments on that one? Or shall we just leave it at $940? I don't see any comments, so we'll just leave that one where it is. I also made note of the youth music project. Let's see here. So they had requested 1,000 and we had them at 1,000. Yeah. So I don't know why I wrote that one down unless there was another comment on that one. All right, so,
Perhaps it was the Westland Community Chorus.
yeah, that was the next on my list, was the community chorus. Right. So let's look at that one here. So for the community chorus, see if as soon as I can find it. Okay, they had requested $2,070 and we had tentatively put them down for $1,650. So if we wanted to fully fund them, that would be an additional $420. Any thoughts on an amount for the community chorus? Yes, Abby?
I'd like to tend that waiting to the food pantry to see if we could give a little bump to the food pantry first before any of the others. I just think they're the most immediately direct, maybe aside from Clackamas Women's Services, in terms of people that are really hurting because of the pandemic.
Okay, so shall we move to the food pantry and see if we want to make any changes there and then come back to the, where were we, community chorus? Yeah, so let's look at the food pantry real quick. So they had requested 2,500. We had recommended tentatively 3,500. We could certainly increase that. We could increase it. Again, we have 1,860, so we could go as high as we want to, up to that amount. We did have two members who had recommended a $5,000 grant to them, which would be double their request. Any comments on that? On perhaps a new amount? Yes, Perrin?
It just seems like they would have, it would be most useful to the food pantry, as opposed not to downplay the community chorus or the historical element Main Street, but after what has happened in the last year, it seems like the food pantry would be a very worthy beneficiary of additional funds. So that, make it 5,360 to me, as opposed to 5,000 and divvying up the rest. It just seems like that would be the best use of the extra funds.
Any other comments? Abby?
I agree with what Perrin said exactly. Let's give the 1,860 to the food pantry. It totals to 5,360. It is, aside from us going out and, me personally giving food to a person in need, it's the most direct way we can help somebody.
Thank you, Abby. Any other comments? I'm supportive of that as well. I think, again, it's a great organization. We know it. It benefits a significant, a very high percentage of the people that they provide support to are from West Lynn. And no matter where they're from, I think it's a critical organization. They do good work. They don't have a lot of overhead. The money that is donated to them goes to the cause of providing immediate assistance to families in need. So again, I think with the current situation we're in, it's certainly even more critical that we fund them as much as we can. So so the suggestion has been made to use the final $1,860 then to increase the food pantry from $3,500 up to what I think would be $5,360. So any other comments on that? All right, seeing nothing, Joshua, I think we'd like to go ahead and make that change for the food pantry up to $5,360.
All right, I've made that change. Do
And
you want me to go through the list and run
Yes.
through each one?
yes,
Okay.
please.
Are we ready to do that here?
Unless, well, let me just check. Do any members have any other final comments or anything else that we would want to change? No, seeing nothing. Okay, Joshua, please go down the list.
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the top of the list and go through each one. I have bridges to changes for $1,650. Clackamas Women's Services for $5,000. Community Living Above Oregon for $2,000. Friends of Maddox Woods for $500. Historic Willamette Main Street for $1,500. Honoring Those Who Serve for $400. July 4th fireworks event for $3,000. No award for Sun Garden Montessori School. $1,650 for Westland Community Chorus. For Westland Food Pantry, $5,360. Westland Historical Society, $2,000. Westland Lake Oswego Village, or Willow, for $940. Youth Music Project for $1,000, which is the total, bringing the total to $25,000. And then an additional $250 for the West Lynn Alliance for Inclusive Community from the prior year to allow them to retain the $250 of unspent funds.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. I agree with those amounts. Any comments from the committee? Anybody disagree? Okay. So with that, I would accept a motion to approve those amounts as read by Joshua to be granted or recommended to the city council to grant to these various organizations. Somebody like to make a motion? Go ahead, Abby. Oh, Perrin jumped in. Well, let Perrin.
I'm not sure if I'll have the language right, but I would motion to approve the amounts that Josh just read that we discussed for the last hour and 20 minutes.
Thank you. Perrin, second?
Second,
Thank you, Abby. Any other discussion before we go to a vote? Seeing none, Joshua, can you call the roll, please?
Okay, sure. Committee Chair Schwartz.
Yes.
Okay, Committee Member Waldron.
Yes.
Okay, Committee Member Lim.
Yes.
Okay, Committee Member Farber.
yes.
Okay, great. Motion passes. Thank you for all that hard work, everybody. I know it takes some time to go through all these applications and there are always a lot of great organizations and great requests that we have, and it's always a challenge to come up with these amounts. But I think I'm pretty comfortable where we ended up this time. So I want to thank everybody for their hard work. Before we adjourn, any other final comments from anybody? Yes, Abby?
I'd like to thank all of you, starting with Josh, for putting this together for us, for each of you members, Perrin and Sheila, and most especially to Ed, who continues to prove his expertise, smarts. You know, I sit here thinking I'd vote for Ed for whatever he runs for, because I like how he does things and values each member and each member's opinion. So I especially want to thank Ed for that. That work that he does. And I'm fortunate that he's president of the Neighborhood Association Presidents Group, because I get to benefit from his excellent leadership in that as well. So thank you, Ed. Well done, as always.
Thanks, Abby. I appreciate that. And again, yeah, and thanks to Joshua and all of our financial people at the city. They do a great job of keeping us organized and making this a much easier process. So with that, unless Joshua, do you have anything else, or are we set to adjourn?
I'd just like to say thank you all for attending the meeting and participating in this as well. I'll put together the spreadsheet and tally everything up and send it out to the committee again, just for final check for, you know, signing and things of that nature. And then it will go before the city council at an upcoming meeting as a recommendation from the budget committee. So I'll make sure to let you know in that email which city council meeting that will be presented at.
Great, I appreciate that. And I'd like to ask if you could send us copies of those documents you read, the last documents there with the previous committee's work. I think that would be helpful going forward to have copies of that for the committee. So
sure. Okay.
Thank you.
We're happy to do that. Okay.
All right. So with that, I think our work is done tonight. So thanks, everybody. Meeting is adjourned, and we'll meet again sometime. Take care, everybody.
Great.
Thanks,
Take care,
everybody.
everyone. Stay cool.
Yes.
Exactly.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.